Good morning. This is Gain Tactical Tuesday. I'm Justin Myers, Director of Expansion for Grid. I am joined by the co-host with the most, Drew Swirsky.
That's me.
Drew, tell the people what are you excited when you saw this topic today? This is fun because I know Cory very well. Cory's my business partner, my brother from another mother. We spend an absurd amount of time together. And Drew is new to Cory, so I'm gonna let Drew ask some questions today and drive some things and get a fresh perspective. Drew, what were you excited about when you heard this topic today? So our topic is how to build instant rapport with our expert Cory King.
For me, anything with the word rapport in it is exciting. It's the way I built my business. It's the way I run my business. I love to instantly build rapport with people at an open house or, well, pretty much anywhere I am. I like to build rapport with people because it can lead to some amazing conversations, both personal and business. So I'm super excited when I saw this one. This is right up my alley.
Oh, I love it. Speaking of rapport, who's got a win right now? Catherine, I don't know if this is your first time joining us. I don't know if I've seen your name before, but welcome. Glad you're here. Jorge, good to see you as well. Who's got who's got a win? Who's got a rapport moment? Who built some rapport this week with somebody? Well, I got one. I went on a great call yesterday. Guy was a retired pilot, beautiful horse property. He's got 47 acres to sell, and got to sit on the porch and spend some time with them and connect. And I don't know about y'all, that's some of the most fun things we get to do, right? Is get to hold space for somebody and advise somebody we just met on like a path forward as they're navigating changes in life. They're getting to the end where they're thinking about, are we going to stay in this house or downsize to another house? Lots of fun. Lots of fun. Cory, we got a quiet crowd today,
What's up, y'all?
so I'm gonna kick you in. Who who are you? Drew Swirsky has questions for you.
Sure. So my name is Cory King. I'm the managing partner of the Kaza Group here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and also co-host of the Grid Knoxville Investor Meetup. Been in the business now for 6 years, which is kind of a head trip to say. It's pretty cool. Father of three, agent investor, former restaurant owner operator, which is something I think really that past or history really helps out in what we're going to be talking about today, which is just building instant rapport with people. So I'm very excited about this topic. I like to think this is one of my superpowers.
I think it is. I think it is too. And Cory, are you a naturally gregarious, life of the party, always had tons of friends kind of guy, or who are you?
No, I was and am still very much like an introvert. I was the long-haired, angsty teenager, just want to like sit in the back and not really talk to anybody. And I didn't go to school dances or parties or any of that. So no, I am not naturally an extroverted person. That was something that had to be brought out of me.
I love that. And so, uh, you know, what I'm curious about is like why is this important? Why should people care about this? And I know that seems like an obvious thing, and yet like I don't know that it is, honestly. I think people spend a lot of time thinking about the why of these things.
Yeah, well, I mean, people ultimately want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And so you've got to be able to build that likability, that trustability in order to earn the business. Certainly with the advance in technology, some people will choose some different routes that might not be necessarily direct, like person to person involvement, but I think a vast majority of the population still likes to do business belly to belly and with somebody that they again know, like, and trust. And I think that will stay forever. I think that's just a human thing. We all crave interaction, right?
Mhm.
And friendship in that. And so, yeah, it's huge. I mean, you've got to be likable, to actually be able to work with people.
So when we talk about instant rapport, does that mean I can just walk off of this call and like do like mentalist stuff, and I'm gonna go do like some street magic and like what is that? Like
If
practically.
you're so talented, I mean, to bust out some street magic, I think that's pretty cool. But no, I mean, I think certainly it can honestly just start as something as simple as just like a nod, a smile, a nice comment, opening the door for somebody. Just general acts of service and kindness is oftentimes where a lot of things just start. It's the energy that you're projecting out there, and people then naturally pick up on that.
Dude, so I love this. You had a bar when you talked about instant rapport before we got on here. What'd you say?
Oh, sure. I mean, well,
You
you
said
don't
instant rapport doesn't start.
start instantly. Yeah, you don't build instant
Yeah.
rapport instantly.
Yep. And so I know Drew wanted to dive into some of the like, all right, let's talk about what goes into baking this, creating this recipe. We were talking about the restaurant business. I don't know if anyone else was in the restaurant business, right? If you don't do the prep work the night before, you are going to have a bad day at your restaurant. Like if the prep team screws you, you're going to be behind all day long. So Drew, I don't know if you
Sure.
and Corey want to have that conversation about like, all right, let's talk through former team leader Drew. Let's talk about how does this practically work? What are the steps?
Right. Like, can you give us an idea of like what your daily routine is, sort of like so you can get in rapport building mode, right? Like you're preparing for a big match at the end of the week on Monday Night Raw. How do
Sure.
you get ready for that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so certainly a lot of it will start with we talk about it a lot, but just like mindset, right? And just being in the right space, frame of mind, getting yourself in a positive state, whether if you're big into affirmations or you like music. I'm a fan of both. And so typically I'm one to just sort of chant out loud, get myself hyped, put on some music. I was listening to the Rocky Four soundtrack right before this, just getting hyped up to some montage music. But yeah, I mean, I think that's ultimately where it can start, is just getting yourself in the right headspace for it. From there, certainly there's the prep work, like we talked about. So in it, like knowing your market. A lot of the street speaks from just confidence in being able to articulate the data and the market that's out there. So really like knowing your market uh, in advance, ahead of your meeting, trust and believe that before you're going to go sit in front of yourself, they know every home that's sold around there. So while you might think like I study homes and prices every day, and therefore like I'm a market expert, like trust that they know more about their neighbor's house than you do, because they've looked at it, they've watched everything sell. So they're definitely having a strong amount of market knowledge is going to be hugely important in this to be able to actually right discuss their home sale. Yeah, just
Right.
So what is that for your market knowledge? What does that look like on a daily basis? Like how do you make time to understand the market?
yeah, I think it comes with just consistency. It's like I look at the hot sheet every day, at least once, right? Most people's MLSs, for those, your hot sheet is going to be, most MLSs will be able to syndicate just what's happened over the last, say, 24, 48 hours in your market. These are the new listings. This is what's pending. This is what canceled, expired, what sold. And you can see a whole list of that just at a glance. And so I look at that every single day. Our MLS updates at 5:30. And so for me in the morning when I'm just up stirring, getting some coffee, pick that up, browse through it, just see. The more you just see things and familiarize yourself, the more you start to see patterns. You start to see what sells in what areas, what styles, and again, what doesn't sell as well is equally important as much as just what is selling. That's one. And then two from there is I also look at the first of every month is when our MLS reports past month sales data. And so I'll usually spend time on the first of each month and going back and just looking over, again, those same patterns. I want to look at the major counties surrounding us and seeing what's the days on market, what's the absorption rate, how long is things, what's the price point things are moving at. But again, just helps breed confidence overall. When I'm going to go sit in front of somebody, I can actually articulate where the market it is at any given time. And the last, I guess, piece of data that I really also look at is just showing data. So our showing service we switched over to Broker Bay. We used to use Showing Time. Both will aggregate this data. You can actually go and pull active showing data like in real time based on zip codes and price points. So you can actually see, oh, here in North Knoxville, for example, between 275 and 325 is your hot spot, but then you get 325 to 375. It's a ghost town, right? And so then when you're going to sit in front of your sellers, you can know like, hey, like in the last 2 weeks, this has been where the activity has really been. So you can really study pricing, you know, at least to the week or to the day.
So
I love
building
that.
confidence, right? Like, so you're building confidence for yourself when you go in, right? So if this is about building rapport, give us a rundown of how you build rapport as you walk into a listing from a person you've never met.
Yeah. So again, I still think some of this starts with just the prep work that we talked about. So there's some steps before I'm even at the house that are going to happen up there. So number one is right, studying your market. Two is sending credentials, sending a pre-listing packet, sending some information, getting something in hand that they can look at. For us, we have just a graphic that we either can print out and hand deliver or email over, but it just gives them a snapshot who you are, what's some sales history, here's some reviews. They're just able to put at least a bit of a face of the voice because we've already chatted a little bit. So they get something, you know, in hand as well as some comps in advance. I want to get all that information to them up front before we even sit down, which again is helping build some rapport, some familiarity. They're gonna Google you, they're gonna look up on Facebook, they're going to look you up. So at least being able for them to have something, you know, in hand in conjunction with what they're going to research also builds rapport, shows confidence for them. Hey, you are a business professional, showing up prepared, and then calling them at least once, if not twice, before the appointment. So for us, where we have an inside sales team, or even if say it wasn't an inside sales, but you set an appointment and the appointment's not for 3, 4, 5 days, right? And I set my appointment. I want to be able to touch base, you know, at least the day before, day of, just as another second opportunity to pre-qualify that conversation. Here, all decision makers going to be present. I want to go over my notes that I had from our first call. Where are they moving to? What's taking them there? What's the importance of that? Really ensuring that they are the most qualified or motivated seller at that point before I'm even going to go to the house. And then from there, I guess the part of that too is just practicing your script, knowing your presentation so that you can deliver it essentially anywhere, anytime, right? It's very consistent and predictable. We have to be able to adapt for some personality types, but our listing presentation is very methodical and just linear. It just takes people like progressions from one step to the next, to the next, to the next.
And that's basically the foundation that's going to allow you to build rapport.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you dig into deeper, like, I don't know if you do this, but like for me, I used to steal with my eyes. Right. Always stealing with your eyes. If they like you have a basketball in the back, your background, like I would say, hey, what's that? Where'd you like things like that, right? And
yeah, so
their favorite sports teams or something around.
Yeah, I'll definitely as I'm in their home or we're touring around, I want to be able to. That's a good line. I like that. It's just for dealing with your eyes. Yeah, looking for areas of common ground when I'm in the home, and even to that point, it starts as I get out of the car. I pull up in front of their house, and it's as I get out of the car. You're on stage at that point. You know, they're probably peeking at you through the curtains. They've seen you pulled up. You're on the Ring camera, so you're on stage at that point. So everything from the moment you pull up to the curb all the way through is showtime. And so it is definitely going to be a matter of being just ready as you pull up there. So as you park, you're ready, have your things in your hand, walk up to the house, right? Knock on the door, take 1 or 2 steps back so you're not right up on the door, smile, and just be warm and engaging for somebody so that they're going to welcome you into their home. And from there, right, is walking inside, he'll offer, hey, do I need to take my shoes off? Right there, you're showing just some respect for somebody's house at the end of the day. Again, just helps let people's guard down. But yeah, if you could, that'd be great. Or no, it's fine. Come on through. Cool, right? You're at least extending a warm gesture right as soon as you walk in the door. Take control of it from there. I mean, that's why you're there. They want you to. They don't want you to be them driving the conversation. So what I mean by that is identify where you're going to go have your meeting. Aim for be at the kitchen island, the kitchen table, because if you don't, then you're going to awkwardly end up like on the couch with a puppy in your lap, wondering like, how did I get here? And this conversation's weird now, and this isn't really structured as well as I want to, right? So identifying where you want to go have this meeting and just be able to say, hey, is it cool if I just go ahead and set my stuff right down? Great, do it. And then from there, hey, well, I'd love to take a tour of the home, just make some notes, get familiarize myself with the property. So you're just immediately taking control of the situation because that's what they want while still being just respectful for their space. And then as you're touring the home from there, you're looking for some common ground, some things I can identify with, whether it's a sports team or a photo from some vacation trip. And hey, I've been there, or something that they do for their occupation. Look for some common ground. My grandmother likes to say, like, I can make friends with a fence post. And I would say that's probably pretty true in that. But just because I'll work to find some common ground with someone. It all, for me, foundation like starts off of that. It's preparedness, and then what's one thing we can find in common and work to build off of that.
Julianne had a really good question, Drew. If it's what's your go-to non-real estate question to get a seller talking and comfortable?
Non-real estate question. So I want to know a little bit more about. I always like to circle back on maybe situation motivation. How'd you find? What is it you do for a living? If I don't already understand that, I'll really honestly, we'll try to find something in common, say in the home, whether it is a sports team, and just make a comment off of that. Hey, my mom is from there. Oh, my dad was. I see you were cop. Oh, my dad was a cop for 30 years.
Gotcha.
Some
So,
base from there.
so it sounds like maybe your go-to is like in the context. We're talking about the seller context, and that's a separate context. I know exactly where your head's at. It's you're about like, how am I entering the house? Body language, just friendly, open. Should I take my shoes? What's going? Oh, good to see you. Hygiene, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so that every time you're kind of doing the same sort of thing where it's about like coming in and being a guest in the home.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I want to be a good house guest in this
got
situation.
it.
And I think in that too, in that early part of that conversation, say as we sit down, I've toured the home, I've got some notes, I better understand, hey, well, I want to know how old's the roof, how old's the HVAC, some common questions that are going to typically come up in there. Ask me, hey, well, I notice your home's very tastefully furnished. Are you planning on leaving any of these things behind, or are we planning on transferring any of these things, or are you going to be taking everything with you? I want to start kind of planting some seeds that, hey, we're already working together as a team in that. And then expectation setting is big, right? So even leading off the conversation with somebody as we're going to sit down and have our consultation. For me, it's letting them know, hey, I just appreciate you guys for having me out today, for the opportunity to discuss selling your home. And the end of this conversation, what we're going to find is really there's three possible outcomes to this. The first one is you're going to look to hire, say, myself and my team to work with you, and that's awesome. The second option is you might choose not to hire us for whatever reason. Maybe it's not a fit. Totally okay. And the third one realistically is going to be, if for whatever reason, Drew, I don't think that myself, my team can help you and your family achieve what you're looking to in the time frame that you're looking to do it, I would just have to humbly pass on the business and refer you to somebody I think that could help serve you better. And all of those are totally fine with me. Fair enough? And cool. So from there, like foundation, I'm setting the standard, the understanding that this is a two-way street. You could choose to hire us, you could not, or I could choose to turn this down. And all of those are okay with me. And I found that also helps let the guard down. And from there, I guess I'm just leading into, my goal here today is just to better understand your situation, your needs. We're going to go over some information, and ultimately you're just going to feel comfortable and confident, and I'm just going to support you 100%. And all of that just helps. You can see the weight just like come off of people.
You know what? I've been thinking about this a lot because some of what you're saying, Drew, would you agree, Drew? Like some of this sounds, it's, I think so much of it happens before we get there. because what you're, I know what you've done is you're going on an appointment. How many listings have you taken so far this year, Corey? Has the team taken?
Team is 35, something like that. I think I'm somewhere around 25 so far this year.
And how many appointments have you been on, you think?
Um, 32, something like that. My close rate's pretty good. I'm like 80%.
Okay.
Right.
So you've had 32 at bats to practice this when 75% of agents didn't sell a house last year, right? So you're going in there, you know what's going to happen. You've got your pattern down. It's the same of like you're not kind of awkward,
Sure.
right? And so I think like, oh man, when I'm thinking about this, it's like, yeah, if I knew exactly what to say and I felt totally prepared and I knew and I wasn't worried about what questions they were going to answer today, and like, yeah, sure, sure. I think I could meet a pretty girl at the party that I'm hosting. Like, and everyone likes me, and everyone's coming up and being like, oh my God, you're the greatest guy ever. Remember when you saved my brother from that?
Sure.
um, so, but you're going out there where you've already kind of done the prep work, and then maybe you've already kind of communicated what you're going to talk about in the meeting, right? I feel like so often when I was going on listing appointments, am I the only one that kind of would like wing it? Who would be like, oh shoot, I've got this listing appointment that I set, and I'm pulling comps like the morning before, and I haven't practiced my script in a minute because I haven't been on a listing appointment in 2.5 weeks, right? And that last one went kind of strange. So what happens when I know this has happened too, Corey, when you go on that listing appointment where you're like, oh, shoot, I'll just end up on my calendar. The ISA's put it on here. I didn't talk to this person. Like, what are you doing when you're walking in that room kind of cold where you're like, oh, I set an appointment. We've texted like once. There's
Yeah,
no like warm and fuzzies.
sure. So, I had one here just kind of recently that happened that way. So it works out really well.
Okay.
Never was able to get the guy on the phone. So I really didn't understand the energy, the tonality I was going to need to come into there. It really was just about as cold as appointment as one can get. 70-something-year-old man, very nice guy, but definitely I could tell very standoffish at first. And so in that, I recognize I guess depending on their personality type, I like to think I've got a pretty good bead on being able to pick up on energy or personality type in there. Is definitely where the hospitality business helps out. You can tell the guy sitting at the bar who just kind of really wants to be left alone versus somebody who's a little bit more open and conversational in that. And so in that situation, in that I really just want to work at uh making sure that my energy is right. Like, because if they're weird and you get weird, then it's all weird. But I found like when they get weird, you've got to be warm in that. Like when you get weird, they get, when they get weird, you get warm.
Mm.
You've got to really just be um I think still driving it, but also just loose and just go with the flow as it is and see how it goes. Like in that instance, the guy was very standoffish at first, wasn't really super stoked with me going to kind of walk around the home, just a lot of clutter, a lot of stuff. So it was more just I could tell based out of maybe shame or things like that. People feel like, oh, if I got shit all over my house, I don't really want somebody like walking through and seeing my underwear like thrown all over the place. Like, hey, I get it. And I just try like, hey, I just want to be able to take a tour, familiarize myself with the place. Trust me, I'm looking past everything. I'm in dozens of homes a week, so I've seen all levels of condition. I'm really just looking. I can look past any kind of clutter and stuff for now. I just want to get a good set of eyes on just what's the overall condition of the place, and that usually helps lower their guard a bit more to allow that conversation just to progress through.
So part of
Hey,
rapport building, right? Like, is making it about them, right? And it sounds like with your systems and the way you map this out that you have like a masterful way of making this about them, right? You know the market, but you send them that ahead of time, right? You send them credentials, so everything about you is already there when you get there. So the anatomy of this appointment can break down and become literally 95% about them. And people
Yeah.
love to hear about themselves. So that's an amazing way to build rapport. right? And then you steal with your eyes along the way, and then you close. And it sounds like you have this down to a system every time, and you do it the same way every time, and you got 25 out of 32.
It helps. It definitely having the consistency and predictability, and that leads to the confidence for me to then just ask for the business because I have the system such that I know I can deliver on it, and so that that confidence definitely transfers. Having a consistent plan of action that you can show people is massively impactful because you're not winging it at that point, right? I can show
So that appointment that you had with the older gentleman, where it sort of was winging it, was not only uncomfortable for him, but it was uncomfortable for you. Right. And there's a lack of confidence. And like, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. That's what happened in there, right? Like it was a rough appointment. And so
Yeah,
it's
well,
like the systematic way of planning it, right?
yeah, and for him, it was really, we spent a little bit more time because I didn't have it on the front end. I had to dive a little bit deeper then in terms of just what's the situation around it. Hey, so just again, Drew, I appreciate you having me out here and understand too. The more I understand, the more I can help. And so that allowed me to unpack that conversation a little bit more with this gentleman and say, like, well, what's really got you thinking about making a move, and what's important to you about doing that? What takes you to New Orleans versus staying here in Knoxville? A big one, just have you thought about keeping this home as a rental? I found most agents when they're going in on a listing appointment are not even taking the time to ask that. And just by even asking that will separate you from the pack because again, you're not making it about you, it's about them. So hey, Mr. Like, I got to understand what his concerns were. You know, he's doing all right. Like he's got a very low rate. He's got a good amount of equity in there. Really just looking for some extra dry powder because he's a little bit lower on cash than he wanted to be. So, hey, well, like if you could keep this as a rental, is that something you'd want to? Like you've got a lot of equity. We started just talking through some of those options again that he has before we even then got into what we would do to sell his home. I wanted to at least make sure he understood his options that were there before we then talk about how we're going to go actually help him move.
Well, you're showing them that you care, right? Which is
Mhm.
a huge thing now because people don't care what you know till they know that you care. And so by doing that, you've just taken yourself to a different level where, hey, this guy actually cares. Let me listen a little bit better.
And I'm not emotionally attached to this outcome. And that starts with that framework on the front end. Like you could agree to hire us, like awesome. You could not, that sucks, but that's okay too, right? And then the third one just be like, if I don't think we can help you get what you're looking to do in that time frame, like that's okay too. I would just have to uh, humbly pass on the business or humbly refer you to somebody else, that kind of thing. But I'm not emotionally attached to how this goes. I'm very just trying to play it neutral. I want to help them. I definitely want what's best for them in this, but I'm not looking out for me at all in this. I really want to better understand their need and make sure that they're actually the highest, qualified seller in this case.
So let's go there because I think that is, we talked about how to build instant rapport, and I think we can leave you with some tips and some tactics. But some of this is, how many years did you spend running that restaurant, Cory?
A decade.
A decade, right? A decade of having people come into your house every single day, making them feel welcome. That is, we know this, like, and I think we forget that, like, we're in an industry where we make a lot of money and the customer is not always right. There, it's $20, $30 and the customer is always right.
Yeah.
And like you've got to like handle people that may be dissatisfied or having a bad day or um and so I guess what I would say is, what do you think, how do I get into that space of, I think you nailed it, is I'm just thinking about that person. I'm not thinking about myself, which makes it a lot easier of like, I want to hear their story. I'm not thinking about what I have to say. One part of that is practicing our script. Because if I haven't answered anything you're going to say, like, oh, I know how to answer days on market, or I know how to talk about this common objection, then I don't have to think about, oh my God, what are they going to say if they ask this? I can kind of just be present. But like, how are you, dude? I'll give you a better one. How are you stoking that fire of caring? Let's talk maybe about your your
Sure.
gratitude routine or your affirmations, or that's a muscle I think you've built over time
It
because
is, it is definitely, I really think that body language in those situations really can make an impact. Talking about like tonality, eye contact, rate of speech, really working on mirroring and matching that person's energy. So if they're fast and talking fast, then okay, I'm gonna fast and talk fast too. If they're a little bit, in this case, let's get them a little bit older, a little bit slower, I can tell a little bit more cautious, then okay, cool. I just need to slow down, turn up the Southern charm a little bit more, and just kind of slow roll this out and work to mirror and match their energy as much as possible. That's something I really focus on. And
but isn't that disingenuous? You're not being yourself.
no, it's definitely like I genuinely care about it, but I also recognize that I am a salesperson at the end of the day. And so there are tactics and things we can use to help um again do these, like build rapport, just gain trust with people. And it's not disingenuous, and like I genuinely care about people, but it is being mindful of being able to read the room and being able to read the energy of the person to be able to get best match that energy.
Would you share the affirmations that you do? Because I think that gets straight down to like, I think they make a difference. I think the things
Yeah,
that we say again and again make a difference. And
sure. Yeah. So for us, it always starts off with like, I'm alive, excited, and full of energy. And conversations make me money. I listen for motivation. I always ask great questions. People need my help. My service changes lives. Amazing real estate deals flow to me easily and abundantly. And I found when I do that, I mean, and it's an affirmation, but it really is, everything I say there is true. It's an anchor for me. Like, my service changes lives, right? I listen for motivation. I always ask great questions, and those carry with me like really throughout the day. Like that energy, it's not just necessarily focused on that, but if I'm if I'm out and about or I'm having a conversation with somebody again, like I listen for motivation. So if I hear them talking about whatever, oh, we're going to travel to the grandkids, we're going to go do XYZ, like I'm going to listen for any thread that's there in order to be able to kind of pull on that to open up that conversation a little bit more.
mm,
I love that. I love that. I expected a little more Ric Flair in your affirmations, like Rolex wearing, right? Limousine riding. I expected that from you, Cory. And that's okay.
he's
Because I
stealing.
yeah, wheeling dealing.
Yeah.
I expected that from you. And I would love to maybe in the comments, anybody that has any questions
Yes.
for Cory. I want to share that I love the questions you asked to build rapport. I always, even though I knew, I always ask people how long have they lived here,
Yeah.
and I would just throw in there like, hey, what's your favorite memory?
Mm.
And I
Ooh,
always stuck that
Drewski.
in there because I wanted to use that later, right? Like whatever your favorite memory is, I'm going to equate that to someone else making their favorite memories here, and we need to convert this from your house to a product. And so I would always use that. But if you have any questions for Cory, either unmute or put them in the chat because he's dropping bombs on you guys today.
And I think what else is we kind of while everyone comes with the chat, I think the other thing is how long did it take you? How many listings do you think you've sold now, Cory? How many listing points do you think you've been on realistically?
Yeah, listing appointments,
Yeah.
hundreds. I mean, at this point, like hundreds. Um,
Like closer to like 500, right?
Probably. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
because your
close to
conversion wasn't
500.
as high. Like, yeah.
Not
And you're
original.
doing
No.
FISBOs and expireds and so how when you were new,
Hmm.
like and you were just calling FISBOs and expireds and like trying to figure this out,
Yeah.
like I think you're always good at building rapport with people, right? Because you
Yeah.
just seem you're very trustworthy and like, but yeah, like walk me through what that was like. What were you doing there to try to get the like
Where I realized I messed up early, like where I had a hard time early on, this just had to like uh I don't know, like trial and error, just the experience like comes through it. But I used to really not do the pre-qual portion as much. And I noticed that was one of the biggest separators for it all. Because I remember it was the second listing I ever signed. And it was the first listing I sold was a little $100,000 house out in Philadelphia, Tennessee. For those of you who don't know, it's just about an hour outside of Knoxville and beautiful countryside, nothing. So that was about 100 grand or so. The second listing was 330,000 bucks. So I thought I was like hunting big game at that point, right? I suited and booted, like just ready to rock, showed up. And I didn't
Oh,
ahead of time, I didn't pre-qualify to ensure that all decision makers would be present and accounted for. And so I go out there and I thought I just nail the presentation like element of it, but it's just the husband, not the wife. She was, of course, conveniently like out at the store. And you're like, oh, right. So there's no business to get signed. There's nothing there. So I remember walking down there, super steep driveway, trying to just be like, like, well, there kind of went that. And, I was left with, well, we'll talk and maybe come back tomorrow and that kind of thing. And thankfully that played out like okay for me. They were able to call me back and yeah, can you come over the next night? And I went out and closed the business and got it sold and yada yada. But like definitely some of that was just learning on, learning as I went in that of just having to go through that pain a little bit of like, ooh, like should have did that better. That could have gone better. I think that was probably a huge thing for me overall was just learning what not to do, or what to do in that helped just refine over time.
ooh, I've got one, and this is I have such a fun because I've watched Cory. Like, it's just been interesting. Like when I met Cory, I'd been in real estate for a while already, and like Cory experienced more success than I ever did at a faster clip. So it was kind of like an interesting perspective of like, oh, but there's still stuff you haven't like learned and you don't have like the context. Like how long were you in it where you felt really comfortable that you're in the value you were delivering and the service you were providing? And does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like where you're like, no, I know I am the best option and I totally deserve my commission. And like,
That took I mean honestly that took some time. That, took a good in 2 years, I'd say, like really easy, like in the business, just doing business, getting the reps, uh failing along the way, having stuff that doesn't sell, having deals that fall apart, uh, learning about just what can go wrong, both in the transaction part of it, what can go wrong, and as far as in a house or things are wrong, it can totally blow things up. Um, and so there was definitely a lot of maybe trial by fire that came with that. Like you can do a lot in advance as far as for you know, prepare. We talk a lot about script practice and role play, um, going through those pieces, reading and writing things down. Um, but then there's a certain element of it too that is just learned doing the thing, like doing the job, right? Like there's only so many things you can experience or kind of train for in um like closed situations, but some of those things you really do just have to gain experience as you're doing the thing.
does anyone have a question? This is the quietest. I love that we're talking about rapport, and this is the first Gain Tactical Tuesday I have where literally no one has spoken. No one on this call wants to build rapport. So we have like the toughest rapport building audience. Hey,
So,
we're not, yep. I'm so interested. Maybe we need rapport building. That's why you're here. I'm so glad, guys. Welcome. Well, first thing would be we've got to communicate, but we could smile. Hi,
so
nonverbal.
if no one has any questions, let's do lightning round questions that I got for you, Cory.
Love it.
Let's knock it out. Coffee or tea before a seller meeting?
Coffee.
What's your favorite song to listen to on the way to a listing appointment?
Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue.
That one, I did not expect that one. That one. what what's your biggest rapport win that you've had with a seller?
Um, golly, biggest rapport win? Honestly, I mean, the one that I had just this past week, this kind of older gentleman that I had is really probably the most like fresh one that's in my head, just because it started off very just cold off. He thought it was honestly going to be a phone call. There was honestly a mix up between when the appointment got set. It was like an ISA set appointment. Like he thought it was going to be a phone call. It's like I showed up and he's like, oh shit, I really wasn't expecting you here, like at my house. So that started off a little bit, tough or rocky. We were able to just work through that. And by the end of it, he was, I would say, like blown away, like all about it. Absolutely. Here, I really want to go for this. We've got kind of a menu of options, and he chose one of the higher menu options in there because he was like, yeah, man, everything you're offering here, like that works for me.
I love that. Last one. If you had to teach a rookie one of your rapport building moves, which one would it be?
Mm-hmm. Know the market. Like just study your data, be confident in that, because that will help you articulate everything clearly from there. Because if you can speak as a market expert, like your ability to build rapport goes up dramatically. So
I love that. I'd love to know everybody's walk-up music. Like
I love that, right? I love that because what did Cory say? Cory said it wasn't anything about like confidence. It wasn't dressed to impress. It wasn't make 3 seconds of eye contact. You know what I mean? Nothing about downswings. Nothing about power postures. All of this like TED Talk stuff. It was know the market. And Cory and I had this. We're trying to figure out like how do you teach this? By the way, Cory jumped in. He had the shortest amount of time. Run This Town by Jay-Z. I love it. Yeah, drop this in there. But it was like, so I love that it's the prep work.
yeah.
I did the preparation where I was confident that I had done the thing there, right? And I'm just confident. I do think the one thing though from the outside, CK, is I think like how you guys communicate about your clients and how you communicate the attitude that you inculcate about the business. Like we have an environment, don't get me wrong, like it's challenging. We're not like perfect, but it really is like the client comes first, or trying to love on people, or trying to understand people, or even I could think of some relationships, right? Cory, where people were very rude, and one of the other one has gone back and tried to
Yeah.
fix it and apologize and just make it right, you know, in the long run. Like that makes a very big difference in like
Yeah.
I don't take my ego out of the situation.
Yeah. And just be empathetic, like highly empathetic to the situation. Just be open to understanding everything that this person's going through, and asking just questions coming from curiosity and contribution is something that people really pick up on at the end of the day. Like moving sucks. I mean, I said this like literally as part of in our listing presentation, all about like, hey, like moving sucks. There's really no like way about it. Like my job is to try to remove as much of the suck as absolutely possible, like from this. But like remember, like selling your home is up there as like one of the top like stressful things you can do, up there with like job loss, right? Family member dying, welcoming a new baby, like any of those things are very stressful, like life events. And so it's being just incredibly empathetic and just being able to try to put yourself in their shoes. Like, hey, what is this person kind of going through right now? Again, like I mentioned, this gentleman, like, hey, he was really coming initially like out of fear and just I don't really know what to do, and shame with my house and things like that. And so being just aware of that, and just again like being able to empathize with them really helps just find that common ground that you can then build off of.
So Sylvia asked a question in the chat that says know the market, but know exactly what about the market.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is knowing your median, your average days on market for your town, being able to articulate what is the buyer market, seller market. We talk about absorption rate, how long the market would take to absorb all the inventory that's out there. Being able to just explain that to, like my potentially like my 5-year-old, I would say maybe like a 5th grader, because I don't think my 5-year-old necessarily cares too much about it. But just being able to clearly break down, this is what we're seeing as trend lines. Most homeowners honestly just want to know, how much can I sell my home for today, and how long would it take me to get that? And so if you can at least articulate the data that surrounds that, and be knowing what ultimately is influencing some of these economic patterns helps
So
you. Days
days
on
on
market.
market,
Yep, your median, your
months
average.
of
I
inventory.
always out of the median, the average of both of those. I know the average we talk about can be weighted and swing pretty heavy, but being able to really explain that, and then be able to before that appointment really work to know, say, that immediate geographic area again, because they're studying the comps as much or more than you are. You probably only looked at it for, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that, like before your appointment at some point. They've been looking at these for weeks, months. They've watched their neighbors unfold.
Mm.
Like they have a first, they have the front row seat to their neighbor's house selling and seeing these things, and they study all of that. Um, and so really knowing your comps for sure. How long did that take to sell? What credits or concessions were maybe given away as part of that? I'd like to break things down really by zip code, or say within like maybe a mile or so radius. But I had to have a price reduction conversation with a seller here not long ago, and that was heavily anchored in just the data. Hey, Steve, like this zip code, you've got 30 people you're competing with between say 275 and 350. You're on the upper part, and everything that I'm looking at in sales over the last 60 days, everything's been selling between 325 and 335. And so where do you think we really need to be in order to actually get this thing sold or get the right eyeballs on this property? Like, yeah, cool. Just get it down. 335. Let's go. Cool. Let's go.
I don't know if that answers your question, Sylvia. Can we, in the last, we're right at 9:16, so I appreciate everybody being here. And Corey, do you have a second? Can we talk about a couple Jedi mind tricks? Can we talk about a
Sure.
couple? Right, cool. So what, for everybody that really wants to know how to build instant rapport, right? Um, is that like, okay, walk me through, do you have a book you recommend? Maybe book, maybe a YouTube person you followed, and maybe we could talk about some of the specific techniques as salespeople that we take for
Sure.
granted that they might not, because so much of this is, to be clear, we're taking this for granted. It is study and practice, and there are techniques, that we've
Yeah,
internalized because we've been doing them for so long.
that's
I
that's
don't know
true.
if anybody knows this. I actually naturally, young man, very shy in my head, like hyper aware of like social rules and like observing the hierarchy and then like knowing like how to do it at a high level, but being unable to do it. So feeling trapped inside of myself, like totally trapped inside of myself for a long, long, long time, very self-conscious. And so like I now facilitate, I'm public, and it is like exposure therapy and forcing myself to do it again and again and again. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple resources, things that I think will really be able to
Yeah.
help as far as salespeople. You mentioned a book. So yeah, Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones. Wonderful book. Highly recommend. This is in my top 3 for anybody getting in the business. This is one of the books to really get. If you could just get one book, this would be the one to do. It gives simple frameworks of how to carry conversations, how to open things up for dialogue, for questions. So Exactly What to Say is probably the one book you could do. You could take the graduate level version of that, which in my opinion would be Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That would be again like the graduate level of that. But just you could take that book and just work with that alone, and it will
Mm.
drastically change how you carry conversations and work through people. We talk like Jedi mind tricks, or what is it, NLP, like neuro linguistic programming. But it's really just in what you say, and then how you say it is also equally important to that as well.
Ooh. And then limiting beliefs, I think, right, Corey? I think so. When I was a salesperson, I had these limiting beliefs around, I don't want to talk on the phone. No one wants to talk on the phone. I'm bothering them. You know what I mean? And like, so what's the limiting? But I think like I believe people want to connect.
Yeah.
Like they
Oh yeah.
deeply want to connect. And does that make a difference in how they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree
Mm.
100% too, that people drastically crave connection. Definitely think that
Mm.
the COVID-19 pandemic, where everybody was kind of shut in for the better part of a year or so, really impacted people in a way that maybe we don't talk a lot about, because it really removed a lot of just social connection for a long time. And humans are just social creatures in general. And so coming out of that, I think, is where we've seen just a big resurgence in networking and events and connection and community. There was my opinion, kind of a massive rebound that came out of that people really look for.
And if there's one, let's say, kind of social technique, what I would say from watching Corey is that exactly what to say. We bring out one a week. We're about to do our Take Territory Tuesday, and then try to use that for a week, and then you do another one and try to use it. So some of it is, I guess, kind of like you've got a good. Uh, I wish we could hear Corey talk about training. Corey, actually, when he talks about the mechanics of training, is a genius. Like about its play, and you know what I mean, of like how to train and how to like add like skills like over from running the restaurants, like just taking normal people and like building skills like over time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's like one thing if I was going to start like, I've got my answer. What's the one thing you would say to work on? Mine would be body language.
Yeah. Or being aware of your facial expressions.
Oh, so like maybe having the mirror when you're calling.
That's huge. That was a big one
Yeah.
early on.
Okay. I love that.
Kind of voice to voice conversations, or prospecting, is just being aware of your facial expression and how that then influences your tonality. If some people recommend like having a mirror up when you're prospecting or making calls, or having something reflective so you can see yourself, you can smile, like that energy comes
Yeah.
out, it translates through the phone. Like we're so much of our communication is nonverbal, that if we're talking like voice to voice on the phone, that's where you have to be emotive, expressive, get up, get moving, get some energy, because that energy translates through the phone. But if you're in person, then that too, again, like body language, if somebody's like they're like closed arms, or if they're leaning in
Yeah.
on the table, you too, like lean in the table, um, working to pick up on those cues in order to, again, just mirror and matching.
Um, the other thing I noticed, if anyone noticed when Corey did his affirmations, he's smiling. He's like, it's that same, like, oh, okay, I'm in it. I'm in it. Like, he, he's that way all the time. Every time you say those, it's the same sort of like energy, did it again and again and again. I'm priming myself, like, kind of physically, because I don't think, like, physically, naturally, or we've talked about this, is like angsty teen listening to
Yeah.
metal. Like he's not walking around with like salesman language in high school, right?
Yeah,
His
no, not
body
at
language,
all.
he's we're slouching, and so like I got to practice these moments of being warm and open and inviting. And hmm. What else would you say? What's one, Drew? I don't know if you got anything you want to ask here, because I want to think instant rapport. My instant rapport tip would be talk to everyone. I ask everyone that I meet, hey, what are you looking forward to right now? I ask clerks this. I like practice, like, can I build rapport? Can I build rapport in the grocery line? For me, it's not rapport. I'm like, how vulnerable can I get strangers to be with me? That's me. Corey knows I love like, oh, how did you get into that? I'm like, oh, because I'll tell anybody anything. Uh, uh, Corey makes people feel comfortable. I don't know if I make everyone feel comfortable. So, Corey, what's your tip? Like, what's the one thing you could go
Um,
like,
actionably
man?
take.
Hmm.
I love what your framework you use, because I've certainly borrowed that, of being able to ask people just, what are you excited about today? I think if you're not naturally a connector, communicator, it's some of what I mentioned there at the beginning. It just starts with a smile, a nod, like a warm gesture, opening the door for somebody. Like it can be as simple as that, uh that can be your starting point with somebody.
Hmm.
It's just
It's
being willing to being willing to listen to somebody, being able to make a comment. Man, isn't it a gorgeous day today? Yeah, it is. Man, it's great. And hey, where are you going today? But just you start um finding ways to have conversation just with small talk. I mean, really, I know some people really kind of hate small talk, but there are ways
But
to start that can get curate to that point. You can get pretty deep with somebody pretty fast.
well, that's based off your learned experience, probably. Is, hey, I'm running this restaurant, and me apparently saying hi to Bill and remembering Bill like makes a big difference in Bill's day. And
100%.
when Susie shows up with a crappy attitude, it like kills the vibe for everybody. And like you don't think it, but it does. It does. We can see your body language over there. Like, what's going on? You
Yeah,
know, like did you
can't
break
hide.
up with? Are you fighting with
Right.
Jack again? Like, what is, because like you're killing the vibe for everybody.
Yep.
So that's kind of interesting. I think yeah, restaurants are like a master class, and because you're on a stage. You're
100.
in the weeds. Everything is melting down. Someone broke a glass, a glass in the ice.
Yeah, and yeah, it was that journey. Like I was a back of house guy. So I was naturally like, I'm gonna hide in the kitchen, I'm gonna do my thing. I was not the out front server. So it was that journey
Yeah.
into management and working with people that brought me out of my shell, as it were, to have to, you're right, like be on stage. All the staff knew as soon as I like pulled in the parking lot, trust me, they're all like, all right, like boss is here, head on a swivel, kind of thing, right? And and then yeah, how you're responding in those situations when yeah, the fryer's down, the delivery truck's 3 hours late, the dishwasher called the server a name, now her boyfriend's at the back door, wants to fight the dishwasher, and I got a line out the door of customers like waiting, and go solve all those problems and troubleshoot. And I think intensity level or excited level, I was found like I had a good mentor in Robbie, which was like always on like a 6 level of excitement. Like Robbie was never super expressive, never really down, just kind of maintaining a cool, calm, collective approach to things.
Hmm.
Fire like that. That energy
It
just
does.
translates. It's huge.
So, have you got an instant report tip before you jump? Oh, I lost you, Drew.
I don't have audio.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay. It's, so I love it. I'm going to leave everyone with this affirmation because I think we start with some affirmations. My go-to affirmation is I give everywhere I go, even if it's just a smile, a compliment, or my full attention. Listening is the best gift I can give other people. And I think the last thing I would say is it's beliefs. Like I can see when Cory has time and he's been like gratitude journaling and he's written out this thing 100 times and he's done his affirmations. Radical. It's like, all these problems are amazing. And then sometimes I'm like, I'm stressed with all these problems. It's like a radical difference, like in terms of like how I show up. And so I just say that's maybe the biggest one is like believing that I can solve problems, believing that we can add value. Cause like Cory's superpower now is like I go to Cory, he's been on so many more listing appointments than me over the last few years because he's been so much more focused on production that I have someone I'm like, okay, hey, you've been in like 5 times the houses I've been in. What do you think of this hood? And that's like a superpower, right? Yeah. I love it. Any final words of wisdom for us, Cory, on this Take Territory Tuesday?
Just go be excellent to each other, as the great Bill and Ted would say.
I love it. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here today. If you got any questions, we put Cory's info in the chat. Cory King, easy to find. DM Cory. Cory would be happy to jump on a phone with you. You can text him, video him. We've got tons of resources here. We've got calls we've recorded. Cory's got a bunch of stuff there in the library. If you're curious about like tapping in and getting into the nitty gritty of how do you actually execute some of these pieces, it is all learnable stuff. There is a system for everything from how do you build social proof on your socials to what does our credentials look like that we send out before a meeting to what's the listing presentation to, hey, here's how I walk through a house. Like exactly. But
Yeah.
some of that is like an apprenticeship thing. Someone's got to show you how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So get a good apprentice. Be excellent, y'all.